Sri Lanka, a pearl in the Indian Ocean, boasts a history rich in culture, faith, and resilience. For thousands of years, this island has been a crossroads of civilizations, where ancient kingdoms flourished and diverse peoples coexisted, shaping a unique identity that endures to this day. Yet beneath the surface of its beauty and tradition, this island nation bears the deep and lasting scars of colonialism, wounds that have shaped its destiny and continue to echo through generations. For centuries, foreign powers coveted Sri Lanka's strategic location along vital trade routes and its abundant natural resources. The island's spices, gems, and fertile lands drew the attention of empires from across the seas, each eager to claim a share of its wealth. The Dutch, arriving in the 17th century, seized control of the coastal regions, building imposing forts and establishing a network of colonial rule that would forever alter the island's landscape. They ruled with an iron fist for nearly 150 years, exploiting the land for its spices, cinnamon, and other riches. Plantations replaced ancient forests, and local communities were forced into harsh labor to fuel the Dutch economy. In their wake, the Dutch left behind a legacy of plundered artifacts, stolen from sacred temples and royal palaces. Priceless treasures, once revered by generations, were shipped away to distant lands, their absence leaving a void in Sri Lanka's cultural memory. Then came the British, even more ambitious and ruthless in their pursuit of power and profit. Their arrival marked a new era of domination, one that would reach every corner of the island. In 1796, the British took over from the Dutch, their eyes set on complete domination. They quickly established their authority, determined to control not just the land, but the hearts and minds of its people. By 1815, after a series of calculated campaigns, they had annexed the Kandyan kingdom, the last bastion of Sri Lankan sovereignty, bringing the entire island under their rule. The ancient monarchy was dissolved, and centuries of self-governance were swept away. The British, like the Dutch before them, were not content with mere political power. They sought to possess the very symbols of Sri Lanka's heritage, believing that by controlling its treasures, they could control its spirit. They craved the treasures that spoke of Sri Lanka's soul, statues, relics, and sacred objects that embodied the island's history and faith. Temples were ransacked, ancient statues removed from their pedestals, and precious artifacts shipped off to adorn the halls of museums and private collections in faraway lands. The loss was not just material, but spiritual, a severing of the connection between people and their past. The systematic looting of Sri Lanka's cultural heritage was not just an act of greed, it was a calculated strategy to dismantle the very fabric of Sri Lankan identity. By removing these symbols, colonizers hoped to weaken resistance and assert their dominance. By stripping the nation of its cultural treasures, the colonizers aimed to erase its history, its pride, and its sense of self. Generations grew up in the shadow of loss, their heritage scattered across continents. The impact of this plunder is felt to this day. Sri Lankans continue to search for their lost treasures, and the longing for restitution remains a powerful force in the national consciousness. The empty pedestals and vacant niches in ancient temples serve as a constant reminder of the violence of colonialism, a wound that continues to fester in the heart of Sri Lanka, urging its people to remember, reclaim, and heal. Among the many treasures stolen from Sri Lanka, the statue of Tara stands out as a particularly poignant example. Her story is not just about the loss of a beautiful artifact, but about the erasure of a living spiritual tradition and the pain of a nation whose sacred objects were taken far from home. This exquisite bronze statue, now residing in the British Museum, is a masterpiece of Sri Lankan Buddhist art. Crafted in the 8th century, Tara is a symbol of both artistic achievement and deep spiritual devotion, embodying centuries of faith and cultural identity. Tara, the goddess of compassion, is depicted in a serene pose, her right hand raised in a gesture of blessing. This mudra, or symbolic hand gesture, is meant to offer reassurance and protection to all who seek her grace. Her delicate features and the flowing lines of her robe speak of the skill and artistry of the Sri Lankan craftsman who created her. Every curve and detail was shaped with reverence, reflecting the devotion of the artists and the community that worshipped her. The theft of the Tara statue was not merely a loss of a beautiful object, It was a sacrilegious act that wounded the very heart of Sri Lankan Buddhism. The empty pedestal in her temple is a stark reminder of what was taken, leaving a void that can never truly be filled. For generations, devotees had offered flowers and prayers to Tara, seeking her blessings and solace. Her presence was woven into the daily lives of the faithful, who found comfort in her gaze and strength in her compassion. Her presence in the temple was a source of comfort and inspiration. The rituals performed before her, the chants and offerings, were acts of devotion that connected people to their heritage and to each other. The British Museum, home to countless artifacts acquired through colonial exploitation, holds a vast collection of Sri Lankan treasures. These objects, displayed behind glass, are admired by millions, but their true stories and significance are often lost in translation. Alongside the statue of Tara, there are intricate ivory carvings, ornate gold jewellery, ancient manuscripts, and other sacred relics. Each piece is a testament to the island's rich artistic traditions and spiritual history. There are also weapons, swords, daggers, and shields that tell tales of Sri Lanka's rich past, its kingdoms, and its struggles for sovereignty. These artifacts are not just objects, they are silent witnesses to the island's resilience and the stories of its people. Each object represents a piece of Sri Lanka's cultural heritage, forcibly removed from its rightful place. Their labels may mention Sri Lanka, but their true meaning and context are lost without the land and people that gave them life. The Dutch, too, amassed their own collection of looted artifacts, now scattered across various museums in the Netherlands. These collections, built on the spoils of colonial conquest, are reminders of a painful legacy that still echoes today. These stolen treasures, silent witnesses to a dark chapter in history, stand as a testament to the insatiable greed and cultural arrogance of the colonial powers. Their presence in foreign museums is a constant reminder of what was lost and of the ongoing struggle for justice and restitution. The methods employed to loot Sri Lanka's treasures were as varied and ingenious as the artifacts themselves. Over centuries, a complex web of strategies unfolded, each tailored to extract the island's cultural wealth and spirit. The story of this plunder is not just one of brute force, but also of cunning, manipulation, and calculated deception. Conquest, the most brutal method, often resulted in the wholesale plunder of palaces and temples. Colonial armies swept through ancient cities, leaving behind ruins and empty sanctuaries. The devastation was not only physical, but also spiritual, as sacred spaces were violated and their treasures carted away. When the British captured Kandy, the last bastion of Sri Lankan independence, they looted the royal palace, making off with the king's crown jewels, ceremonial swords, and other priceless regalia. These objects, once symbols of sovereignty and tradition, were paraded as trophies in distant lands, their significance reduced to mere curiosities in foreign museums. Expeditions, often disguised as scientific or anthropological endeavors, provided another avenue for plunder. Under the pretense of research, explorers gained access to sacred sites and royal collections, cataloging and removing items that held deep meaning for local communities. European scholars, armed with notebooks and collecting bags, fanned out across the island, documenting and often taking anything that caught their fancy. Their curiosity, while sometimes genuine, was frequently a cover for acquisition, as rare objects were quietly shipped back to Europe. Ancient manuscripts, rare plants, and even human skulls were deemed fair game. The thirst for knowledge and novelty led to the removal of irreplaceable texts, unique botanical specimens, and human remains, stripping Sri Lanka of its intellectual and biological heritage. Missionary activity, cloaked in the guise of spreading the Christian faith, also played a role in the looting. Missionaries arrived with promises of salvation, but often left with relics and icons that had been venerated for generations. Missionaries, often hand in hand with colonial authorities, persuaded or coerced locals into parting with their religious objects, deeming them pagan and therefore unfit for worship. In many cases, villagers were pressured to surrender their most sacred possessions, believing it was a necessary step toward acceptance or protection. These artifacts would then find their way into missionary collections or be sold off to private collectors. Some were displayed as evidence of missionary success, while others vanished into the hands of wealthy buyers, their stories lost to time. Finally, smuggling provided a discreet but steady stream of artifacts out of the country. Under the cover of darkness, crates filled with treasures were loaded onto ships bound for distant ports. Corrupt officials, tempted by the promise of riches, turned a blind eye as unscrupulous traders spirited away treasures under the cover of darkness. The black market thrived, fueled by demand from collectors and institutions eager for exotic rarities. These stolen artifacts would then surface in antique shops and auction houses in Europe, their origins conveniently obscured. Today, many of these objects remain far from home, silent witnesses to a history of loss and longing, their true stories waiting to be reclaimed. In recent years, a long overdue conversation about colonial injustices has taken center stage on the global stage. The Netherlands, once a formidable colonial power, has taken a significant step towards atonement by returning hundreds of looted artifacts to their rightful owners. This act of contrition, though belated, signals a growing recognition of the need to right historical wrongs. The Dutch government, acknowledging the involuntary loss suffered by former colonies, has committed to returning artifacts unconditionally. This signifies a departure from the legalistic arguments often employed to justify the retention of looted objects. The Netherlands' repent and return approach has garnered international acclaim, setting a precedent for other former colonial powers to follow. The return of these artifacts, imbued with cultural and spiritual significance, is not merely a symbolic gesture. It represents a step towards healing the wounds of the past and fostering reconciliation between former colonizer and colonized. The Netherlands' actions, though they cannot erase the injustices of history, offer a glimmer of hope for a future where cultural heritage is respected and celebrated, not plundered and exploited.